Another example I'd like to share with you happened when my wife and I and a fellow colleague, Seferi Soler, who's a professor at ESADE in Barcelona with me, decided to visit some of the vineyards in Priorato, a wine region south of Barcelona. And one of the things that's amazing is the Priorato wines back 15 years ago were kind of like the Chiantis of the 60s. You could buy them for $7 or now $9, $10 a bottle. They were bulk wines. They were wines that people would drink with a meal. And then if you got really sophisticated in your wine consuming behavior and had the resources, you'd kind of go beyond Prioratos. This is a story about Ramon and Valentin, two brothers, Llagostura, who in their mid to late 40s did on a September in 1998 what they had been doing since they were born. They are the fifth generation of a family, the Dosh Llagostura family, to own a particular vineyard in Priorato. And every September, their parents took them, and they took their wife and children to the vineyards, where they collected grapes, they pressed the grapes, and started to process them. The different thing that happened on this particular September in 1998 is at one point, Ramon picked a few grapes and turned to his brother, who was a few vines away, and said, Valentin, these grapes, of course he's saying in Catalan, but these grapes are really distinctly good. And they started tasting them, and they were talking about them. And they started to wonder what it would be like to only produce the best grapes and produce a single vintage wine, not a bulk wine, but a wine from their vineyard that was an aged wine, so it had a year on it, and sell it to people as a high-quality wine. Priorato has been around as a wine-producing region for just about 150 years. And yet it really, as I said earlier, was a place where the cooperative would collect the wines from the different vineyards, and they would be pressed into a bulk wine. Each vineyard might have its own bottle, but they weren't vintage wines, which didn't have a specific year on it. Part of it is the terroir, the ground that it's based on, and the shale, gravel. I mean, you think it's a driveway, not a vineyard, by looking at the quality. But the combination of the salt sea breezes from not far from the Mediterranean and the sun, the Spanish sun, makes for a delightful, growing, fertile region for these grapes. Ramon and Valentin went to their uncle, Juan Dosh, who was the head of the fourth generation of the family, running the vineyard, and approached him. Now, they knew that Uncle Juan was fretting because the vineyard had been losing money consistently, not just not breaking even, losing money for many years. Occasionally they have a decent year, but mostly they were losing money. His two adult children had tried to run the vineyard and couldn't make it go, so they went off to separate careers, one in the electric utilities in the area, one in an inventor creating mechanical devices for companies. So they went to their uncle and they said, Uncle Juan, we believe we could transform this vineyard. We believe that we can take certain of the grapes and make a really special wine. And Juan said, how would you do that? And they said, well, first, we would have to accept a transition period. We'd have to go and vine by vine, on section of the vineyard by section of the vineyard, pull out certain vines and just kill them. Others would have to prune right to the ground and let them, over the next few years, regrow. Others are ready to grow a quality grape now, and others we'd have to graft, so they'd be ready in a year, maybe two. He got very excited. This is a way not just to save the fifth generation of the family business, but to live the dream that they all have in Priorato. Juan and Valentin didn't stop there. They're both very high in emotional intelligence. They decided to go to the heads of the village cooperative, who were heads of other families that had other vineyards, and talk to them about this concept. But first, as Uncle Juan had said, he said, please talk to your cousins. They went to their cousins. Their cousins loved the idea, endorsed it. and said, go for it. We have our own lives now, but we'll support anything you want to do. The heads of the cooperative loved the idea also. Okay, so now Ramon is faced with a choice. He decides to resign his position as CFO of Schlumberger España, a major top-level executive position. Valentin, who's a tenured full professor at ISADE, management and law school in Barcelona, and a well-known author of books on international economics and speaker on the circuit, he resigns his position, and they both decide to commit themselves to the rejuvenation of this vineyard. Well, in 2001, they issued their first Mas Doix, vintaged bottled wine. And that wine was given 98 points by Robert Parker, the ultimate authority on the quality of wines. Most people know that if a wine passes from the 80s into 90 points, it triples its price or more. And it won a higher evaluation than any other wine in Spain, all the classic Riojas and Ribera del Dueros. This was an amazing thing coming from especially this region of Priorato that many of the other wine producers throughout Spain had not taken seriously. Well, they did it again in 2003, 2004, and 2005. By now, Janice Robinson of the Financial Times, also a major critic, gave them ratings in the very high 90s. So all of a sudden, their wine went from something that you might pay the equivalent of $10 for, to if you go to a restaurant in Chicago and can find, as I have at certain restaurants, a Mas Doix wine, you're going to have to pay $140 for this wine. What is amazing is it didn't stop with the success of their vineyard. The other vineyards got inspired, and they started to do the same thing. And today, if you went to Priorato, you can actually go on vineyard tours, like going to Napa Valley or Sonoma. You can buy vintaged, really high-quality wines from a number of the vineyards in Priorato. Their vision that they built step by step as a shared vision, taking into account people's feelings and ideas, but mostly their dreams, ended up rejuvenating not just their family business, but an entire region of a country. There are many such examples all around us of how shared vision transforms a group of individuals into a team, into an organization, into a community. And when we start to move together, we're able to do things we never thought before were possible. As an end to this module, I would ask you to please consider doing the following action learning assignment. I'd like you to take the same two questions, and I'll repeat them in a moment, and I would like you to ask these two questions of all of your subordinates and at least 5 other people. It's better if it's more like 10 other people, either that are somehow work in your organization or are clients or board members, and write down their answers. It's even better if you have them in a meeting in which you talk about it, or over a lunch or dinner. And then as you hear the stories that people offer, listen for themes or patterns. Ask the people, if you're having a large lunch together, ask people what they see as the themes or patterns, because these become the elements of an exciting, inspirational vision for your organization. And again, the two questions are, tell me about a time in which you felt proud to be in this organization. Tell me about a time when this organization was at its best. Thank you. Good luck.